የተከበራችሁ የሰላም ካቶሊክ ቲቪ ተመልካቾቻችን ዛሬ በዚህ ፕሮግራም አንድ እንግዳ ይዘን ቀርበናል። አቶ እስኮት እዚህ በኢትዮጵያ ካቶሊካዊት ቤተክርስቲያን ባለፉት 2 ዓመታት የ10 ዓመት መሪ ዕቅድ የተዘጋጀ ይገኝ ነበር እና በዚህ የ10 ዓመት ዕቅድ ሂደት ላይ በዋናነት በጠቅላይ ጽሕፈት ቤት በኩል እንደ ባለሙያ ተጋብዘው 2 ዓመት ሙሉ ከቤተ ክርስቲያን ጋር በጋራ ሲሰሩ ቆይተዋል እና ዛሬ ደግሞ ስለዚህ ስለ 10 ዓመት መሪ ዕቅድና ወደፊት ተግባራዊ መሆን ያለባቸው የተለያዩ የተሰጡ ገንቢ ሐሳቦችን አስመልክቶ ውይይት እናደርጋለን እና እንደ ቤተ ክርስቲያን ሁላችንም እንግዲህ ስለዚህ የ10 ዓመቱ መሪ ዕቅድ ይዘቱ ምን እንደነበረ እና በየሰበካው በየገዳማቱ በየተቋማቱ ወደፊት ሊሰሩ የሚገባቸው የተለያዩ ፕሮግራሞች ወይም ደግሞ የተለያዩ የተሰጡት ሐሳቦች ምን እንደሆኑ በዚህ ዙሪያ ላይ ውይይት እናደርጋለን እና አስቀድሜ እንግዲህ እንግዳችንን ራሳቸውን እንዲያስተዋውቁ አደርጋለሁ። ቀሪውን የኢንተርቪው ክፍል በእንግሊዝኛ የምናደርገው ይሆናል እና ሁላችንም እንግዲህ በያለንበት ይህንን ፕሮግራም ስናዳምጥ ወይም ስንከታተል ቤተክርስቲያን በሚቀጥሉት 10 ዓመታት ልትሰራ ያቀደችውን ሁሉ ተፈጻሚ መሆን እንዲችል በጸሎታችንም እንደዚሁም ደግሞ እያንዳንዳችን ለዚህ መሪ ዕቅድ የበኩላችንን አስተዋጽኦ ማድረግ እንድንችል ከወዲሁ ለማሳሰብ እወዳለሁ። Scott, thank you for coming. You are here at the Catholic TV studio in the Archdiocese of Addis Ababa. And we are pleased that you accepted our invitation to give an interview on the church-wide strategic plan which took place the last 2 years here in Ethiopia. And we will discuss further about the content of this strategic plan. But before that, I would like to give you the floor to introduce yourself to our audience, who you are, what you do, and how you get involved also in this process.
Thank you, Abba. And I just want to say it's a pleasure to be here to take a moment to talk about this process. It's really been a very inspired, very blessed process for me. So yes, my name is Scott Lefebvre. I'm an employee of Catholic Relief Services, a Catholic NGO, international NGO, who has a very strong presence in Ethiopia for many decades. I have been with CRS for 25 years, and as you said, I've been in Ethiopia for 2 years, and I've been helping to I do 3 things with the church. As I'm full-time seconded. Actually, I'm seconded up until today. Today is my last day, and then I will be changing roles, but I will continue to support at a lower percentage until September. But I do basically 3 things. I do strategic planning, institutional support, and humanitarian response. So I help with several dioceses, especially those in the north, but also in response to the South in the humanitarian work. I do institutional support, and as you mentioned, do strategic planning. It's been going on for now 2 years now, and it's been just an amazing process. So yeah, it's been a very learning experience for me. I've done a lot of strategic planning in the past, but this is the first time I've done this at a national level with the church. So it's been a learning process along the way.
Before starting to talk about the church-wide strategic plan in Ethiopia, what is your experience in this field in other countries in the past? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
I've worked quite a bit in strategic planning for CRS and other institutions, with planning with the National Caritas or planning for various church institutions, whether it's a church microfinance institution or others as well. I haven't done anything this comprehensive, throughout the church. The principles are very much the same. I do want to say this whole process was hugely facilitated by the synod, by the synodal process led by the Vatican, because it effectively said we need to listen better, we need to understand each other better, and we need to move forward together better, which I cannot think of a better summary of strategic planning. The fact that it started a year before we did really helped. So there were many things that helped here. But it's true, I have quite a bit of experiences with CRS, with other institutions, and the basic steps are very similar. But it's also very biblical. St. Paul said, before you build a building, you'll stop and think through what you need and the type of work. In the Old Testament, it recounts if you have an army and you want to go to battle, you're going to stop and think and calculate how many men you have, how many men your opponent has before going into war. So it is something that we can find roots in Holy Scripture. And it's true, the secular world has embraced strategic planning wholeheartedly, but there's wisdom in that. There's wisdom in that we can see. So I had good experience, but also this is very new in being such a comprehensive experience.
Thank you. And so when we come to the main topic, church-wide strategic plan for the Catholic Church in Ethiopia, and 2-year-long process. And can you tell us a little bit about the preparation and how the process went?
Thank you. Yes, so the process started 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago in June of 2022. And it really, the planning phase lasted about 15 months. We finished up in September of last year. And it was a 4-phase process. The first phase is effectively asking a lot of questions about your context. You really want to just be a very exploratory. You want to listen, you need to understand. So we all understand our context in different ways because of our own perspectives, our own biases, but also because we see things from different parts of the country as well. So we need to gather all that and really agree on our story. I will say it's always a challenge. I find in Ethiopia, at times it can be challenging with a lot of different narratives around the country. And so bringing those narratives together is a very enriching process. Whether you're in the north or the south or wherever, bringing everyone together and say, okay, this is the story of Ethiopia. This is the challenges that we face as a Catholic Church. And so that's the first phase. The second phase is where we were looking to generate options in terms of, how could we address some of these conflicts, some of these challenges, and also to take advantage of opportunities. It's not only about problems, it's about opportunities that are before us and generate what are the best options. And then you go through a phase of analysis of all of these to come up with effectively the best options that you think for addressing the problem. And all in all, it is an iterative process. Sometimes you go 2 steps forward, then you say, well, wait a minute, we need to step back and do a little bit more problem analysis before we really can go forward again. And then the last phase the 4th phase is an articulation. It lasted about 15 months, which is actually quite quick for a big institution to do a strategic plan in just over a year's time. It was finished coincidentally at the end of the Ethiopian calendar 2015, and so starting in September of last year is when we started the execution of the plan. Started forming, so since September we've been in execution phase. We formally launched the plan on December 19th here in Addis Ababa, and which was a wonderful event, by the way. I'm always encouraged by the strong participation from the different parts of the church, but also other faiths were represented as well. There was the Orthodox Church sent a representative, the Protestant churches, and the Muslims sent a representative as well. And they all gave good speeches signifying, any way we can all help the Catholic Church to implement this plan. It really does take us coming together. One thing I noticed at the beginning of the plan, and is that there are an awful lot of good things happening in the Catholic Church in Ethiopia. What is needed is more alignment and more commonality and then you get bigger impact. When you were all pushing in the same direction on the same issue, we've defined the same priorities. If we say in the social side, the triple nexus, the humanitarian, the development, and the peace building integrated together, that's our priority. If we're all doing triple nexus programming, it's going to have bigger impact. If we want to focus on liturgy, on the pastoral side, and especially on the operational side, if we all are trying to improve the financial management, we'll make some impact. But if we're all doing different things, it'll have less impact. And of course, the foundation is the governance. The governance, making sure that we're organizing ourselves in a way that not only reflects all of the rich traditions of the Catholic Church, but also that works, that people's needs are being met. So yeah, it was, as I said, it was a 4-phase process over 15 months. That's the development. Now, in these past 8-9 months, we are in the execution phase, where we've, basically breaking it down into manageable pieces. We have a nice vision. We have very nice, goals and outcomes, and now we need to break it down into different objectives and activities, and then prioritizing. Execution is hard. Strategic execution is very hard. Mm-hmm. It requires us to change things. It requires us to change, especially the leaders, to change the way that we're operating. If we come to work every day and we say, I'm going to change something today, either what I'm saying or my routine, then we can get some good change going.
Thank you. Now, this is good. We will come also some of the topics later, mm-hmm. also on the execution right. At the end of our conversation.
Sure.
But still, to ask you more on the process, the preparation, but also in the course of the process, the participation. You said that there were many who participated from different dioceses and other institutions, congregations, or mm-hmm. Social developmental, leaders who took part in the whole process. That is encouraging. What makes this strategic plan for me very unique is compared with what the Church did in the last 20 years, mm-hmm. Is that external experts were involved in the analysis, operation, or in social development, experts, and then yourself also from a strategic point of view is very important, for the entire process, to see the gaps in the lens, in the eyes of experts from outside. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Sure. We did want to involve people with, again, different perspectives regarding the context, different options. There's a richness in diversity, whether it's diversity of perspective, we have gender, men and women, we have people of different ethnic groups, and we have those of us who come from other places. And we all bring something interesting, a different perspective, and a different way of doing things, and all of that helps. I think what we saw was all of that can be, we can come together and we can agree, but there's always a bit of conflict in there, which is necessary because we all come from different areas and we have to try to resolve that. Whether I mention different narratives or different perspectives or different cultures. And I have to say, this process was very different than I'd ever done before. The principles are the same, but the way it played out. And so it was a little bit of a marriage of cultures, of different experiences. But all that is, like I said, I think if I can say the leaders of the church, I was I've played a role of advisor. I think the leaders of the church really wanted this. They really wanted this, and it showed. And with a bit of technical assistance, with a bit of understanding some basic principles of strategy, it all worked very well. Mm-hmm. But we came at this from different directions, and we had to figure out how to work together, mm-hmm. and I think we did. Like I said, it wasn't without, conflict is good. Conflict, as long as you're respectful and you're coming at it, that's the way, as Pope Francis says, it's through listening that we understand one another. And that's what the Synod is all about. And that's what the strategic planning is about, listening to one another, understanding, and then moving forward together.
Yeah. Yes, you mentioned also the process. It started after a 1-year journey of the global synod, right. The synodality of the church. So it was very helpful for the Catholic Church here because in the process of that 1 year, the Church deliberated also on the request came from the Holy See to conduct consultations in different dioceses and Catholic institutions, and even outside of the Church should consult others on this process, on the synodality. So that is a very good moment, to engage also in a strategic plan, because the Pope Francis, His Holiness, he asked to see ourselves and do a self-examination, and he gave us also 3 important pillars for that process, that is communion, participation, and mission. So in this process of strategic plan, I think we did in the same way to strengthen our communion and to be more participatory in our mission, and also be more active for the mission of the Church. So in order to have a strong communion, the Church has to listen, has to come together and listen to all members of the Church, so that all can be part of the universal Church. So I think when we go to the content of this strategic plan, so the main important point in this, just to mention one, is governance. How is the Church governed, and are we aligned with the canon law, the governance document of the Church, which the Church uses universally? So that's a very good way of doing self-examination. So also pastoral, the pastoral and the formation pro evangelization, but also social development activities, education, health, and other social services are revisited to see where we are and what can be improved and how can we stand together in communion to enhance the mission of the church by bringing more people to be involved, to participate in the mission of the church. So this is, a gift for the Church of Ethiopia. So can you tell us a little bit about the content of this strategic plan, how it went, the execution, or the other elements will follow? But it might be also good as an expert, you have been deliberating the last 2 years on the content of the strategic plan, and it would be good also to have some insight into it.
Thank you, Abba. Yes, as you mentioned, governance is the foundation, and the goal of governance, as you said, is communion. How can we work together best together? How can we structure our institutions better? It has to do, canon law, instructs us on certain things. The government has laws that instruct, we have certain government provisions and government statutes. And then there's the basic needs that we have every day in terms of how we're communicating and how we're, as I say, organizing ourselves. It has to do with our policies. It has to do with, the way, the structures that are in place. And yes, the canon law is the basis of it. But it also helps us to do our work better. Fundamentally every day, if I have certain information needs, or if I need support from, if I'm in a diocese and I need support from the national office or vice versa, the way that we're governed will either facilitate or sometimes it can cause some undue conflicts. And so that's the very basics, and many of these are ecclesiastic, as you said. Certain things that canon law says should exist in dioceses and congregations, and other things are basically the way we've, kind of evolved, and our context matters as well. I mean, during the time of the war up north, we had to organize ourselves a little bit differently just because there were certain constraints that we were facing. So yeah, our governance structure is fundamental. And then there's the pastoral pillar, which is, of course, the very fabric of the church is a pastoral. And again, Pope Francis has emphasized the pastoral side of being religious, Catholic leaders. And so here I think, the aspirations of the church are coming to bear. It wants to be able to fulfill its pastoral mission, its pastoral mandate. And so, there's everything from liturgical reform to interreligious dialogue, which is part of that as well. The social side is the one that I'm familiar with most, coming from Catholic Relief Services. At the very basis, first, we need to meet people's basic needs, and there's been a lot of emergencies in the country, and so, especially their material needs, but also their trauma needs. I'm always struck how people who go through difficult times, these crises, yes, their needs are basic of food and shelter, but they're also trauma. People are facing with a lot of, and then when they are recovering, then we also build peace as part of. Again, as I mentioned, it's a triple nexus approach. There's also the education and health systems, which are very widespread throughout there are over 400 schools that you're running. There's dozens and dozens of health clinics. And again, here is, we have our hopes and our dreams that we're able to educate more and more Ethiopians. But there are a lot of constraints. We need to really work with the government as best as we can, because they come out with policies and we need to be able to work within them. And we need to basically improve a lot of the quality of our services in our health and our education institutions. Supporting all of this is the operations. And here, I think, again, the consensus, I'm kind of marvel sometimes at the consensus that was actually reached. But here, there are issues of financial management, issues of human resources, and especially issues of sustainability. The church has a lot of assets, and it really can become a much more sustainable church if it were to, just with a bit of organizations and exploration of how to use what the church possesses. There are 4 cross-cutting themes. These are essential in every program, whether it's governance or pastoral social or other. The first is safeguarding. As a church, we are called to protect human dignity, and so therefore this is the first of the, we have to protect the people that we work with, anybody we come in contact, and especially the people we serve. We need to uphold their dignity. Secondly, we need to monitor, evaluate our progress. We need to understand if we are making progress and learn how to evaluate it well. So monitoring and evaluation is the second cross-cutting. The third is empowerment and inclusion. In the secular world, it's called gender, and this is where we look at ensuring that as we work, as we hire, not only hiring, but as we embrace all the people, all of our staff and all of the people we serve, that we're paying close attention to the balance and the power and all the structures that have to do with empowerment and inclusion. And finally, communications and advocacy, and especially the voice of the church. How can we strengthen the prophetic voice of the church in all of its ways? How can we strengthen communications? I haven't mentioned too much about communications. I did mention about listening at the beginning. But every planning process, the synodal process is the same. Communication and how we organize ourselves and communicate effectively is essential to strategic planning. We have limited time, we have limited resources, we have to carve out a way forward, we have to set new visions, we have to set new broad goals and objectives. If we are communicating very effectively, we will achieve our goal. If we're not able to overcome some of the challenges, whether they be technological or other, it's a bit more difficult. And I think the fruit of the current plan is the fruit of a lot of very good communication and people being open to others' ideas, others' perspectives, and sharing. So I've repeated it throughout the process. Let's try to figure out how we can communicate better, more effectively, a bit more effusively, with more clarity, and with complete honesty. If we're honest about what we're facing, and if we're embracing and listening well, the process goes well. So.
Yeah.